This isn't just a comic. It's the moment superheroes were born. This comic book recently sold for a record-breaking price of $15 million and is now the most expensive comic book ever sold. I had the pleasure to sit down with the man who made this sale possible. But before we talk in detail about the sale itself, let's see what CGC's president, Matt Nelson, has to say about this book.
A CGC certified comic book has once again made history. This Action Comics #1, graded CGC 9.0 from the collection of Nicolas Cage, has sold by Comic Connect for a record-breaking $15 million. That's right, $15 million. Not only is there no other copy graded higher by CGC, but this particular copy has an incredible backstory. Stolen from the famous actor Nicolas Cage, the book went missing for over a decade before being recovered. Comic Connect subsequently sold it for a record price of $2.2 million shortly after that. Since then, it has resided in a private collection until now. Collectors around the world rely on CGC because we provide the most trusted and thorough grading for rare, high-value comics, ensuring that iconic pieces like this Action 1 are recognized and protected for generations to come. From being lost to the world to now commanding a record-breaking price, this Action 1 tells a story as epic as Superman's own origin. And CGC is proud to have preserved and certified this legendary book.
All right, guys, I think the significance of this book is now crystal clear. So let's move on and talk to Vincent Zurzolo, who made this incredible sale possible.
Well, Vincent, great to have you here, and congratulations on that amazing achievement with the Action Comics #1 sale for $15 million. Before we dive further in, just give us some context. What kind of role did you play in this whole transaction and Comic Connect? And maybe you can show us the comic as well. I mean, it's in the back, but
right behind me. Yeah. Oh, here it is, guys. Here's the world's most valuable, most expensive comic book, the world record-breaking Action Comics #1 Nicolas Cage copy. CGC graded 9.0. This book I've sold several times. The first time actually, I should say, historically speaking, this book has been the world record holder multiple times. Back in 1992, Sotheby's sold this book for what was then a record $82,000 in 1992. And then my partner, Stephen Fischler, sold it to Nicolas Cage in 1996 for what was then again a record $150,000. And in the year 2000, this comic book was stolen from Nicolas Cage, and I can get into the details of that. We told Nick that sooner or later it would come to market, and when it did, we would get it back for him. Fast forward to 2011, and we were offered an Action Comics #1 and retrieved it for Nick. It was Nick's book, and again, I can get to all the details. And we just brought it to market and sold it for $15 million, which is now the world record. It eclipses, obliterates, whatever other word you want to use, the recent record. And we're incredibly proud and happy to have this book pass through our company's hands once again.
I don't know how your hands aren't shaking while you're holding it.
Yeah.
I would be so nervous to drop it.
This is the 73rd time I've sold an Action Comics.
Wow. Incredible.
Our company's name, Metropolis and Comic Connect, our auction company, has become synonymous with Action Comics #1s. And we recently ran a report and found out that we've sold many of them more than once, but we've sold 73 copies of Action Comics #1, which I believe is by far the largest number of Action #1s that have ever been sold by a single company.
Very impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. But still, I mean, if I would hold, even if it would be my 100th time that I hold such a comic in my hand, I would. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's a great book. It's a beautiful book. And we're just thrilled to have it a little bit longer before it passes into the hands of the new owner. We asked that we have it on hand to do interviews like this. And for those of you out there who don't know, Jan and I have been trying to get together several times, and it is kind of like ironic and fortuitous that we didn't do our interview like a month or two ago when we were supposed to. We
Yeah.
made it the big news for all the fans out there to be able to see this book as close to in person as you're going to get right now. So, yeah.
That's
A piece of history. That's
yeah. And I thought like the same. I thought like, okay, what a funny coincidence that the first times hasn't happened. So great that it is happening today.
Yeah.
But walk me a little bit through like a buying process of that scale. I mean,
So what you have to understand is we are well known for high-end comic books. Now we sell comic books for as little as a few dollars a piece all the way up into the millions. So we have a very affluent client base for these types of comic books. And we auctioned this book back in 2011 when it hit a record at $2.2 million. And when we found out our buyer was interested in the book, we reached out to the owner and we were able to think somewhat it tried to make sense. And put the deal together. It took a little bit of time. There were some braggers and details that needed to be worked out. I flew down last week to get the Nicolas Cage denotation on the label. It didn't have that before. That was one of the little things that we needed to take care of. So all in all, what I really love about this transaction, first of all, the fact that it's making worldwide news is just great. We love being in the spotlight. We love being in news. For years and years, for decades now, we've been the top. We were the first company to sell $1 million comic book, which was Action Comics number 1 8.0. We were the first company to sell a $1.5 million comic, which was an 8.5. And we were the first company to sell a Silver Age comic book for over $1 million. That was Amazing Fantasy 15, 9.6. That's all for $1.1 million. And so we've had all these really, really high-end sales. And over the course of time, we were the first company to sell an Action one for 1.5, 1.75, 2.2, 3.2, 4.7, and I'm probably missing a few in between there. I think 2.5 or the 3.1. There's a lot of sales. There were a lot of sales. So suffice it to say, we're thrilled with this one. We are definitely enjoying hearing from so many people around the world, news organizations, customers, fans, collectors, friends, family. It's been amazing. Thank you all so very much for reaching out. Our social media accounts on Instagram, on X, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and on Vero are all blowing up. So it's been really exciting. Yeah.
As they should. I mean, you guys writing history here once again. But on the sale itself again. I mean, even though you have like a big client base, because you and your partner are in the comic book world for a few decades now.
This is my 4th decade. I just hit 40 years this year.
Okay, nice.
Congratulations! Wow.
Yeah.
That's what you guys are supposed to say. That's impossible. That would mean you would have started when you were like an infant.
Okay, we can practice that next time. But even though that you have like an existing client base where you can reach out and offer those kind of high-end products, I mean, 15 million is still a lot of money. So were there multiple people interested in, or how does it work? You like?
Well, I will say this: we had a few calls after the sale was made.
Okay.
Like, oh, I would love to get a copy. They get, is he interested in selling it? And so that was nice, and it adds confidence to the person who bought it.
Yeah.
But what was really wonderful about this was that you have a buyer and a seller, and us negotiating and brokering the deal. And what's really wonderful is that every party involved is an incredible comic book fan. It's not that it was about money or it was about, just having the best of the best for just because I have money to throw around. these people love comic books, and so that's really special. And that's it's nice to see that passion in the heart of a true collector is there at the highest levels.
Yeah, yeah, totally get it. And when like the previous owner of that comic came to you guys and were like, okay, I'm ready to sell, was like your initial thought like, okay, we are breaking a world record with that book?
Oh yeah, of course. We were very cognizant of the fact that this would be a record-breaking sale. My partner and I, again, not to make light of this sale in any way, shape, or form, the importance of it was definitely there. But the way I was taught early on in my career in collectibles was that you don't get fixated or nervous about the price. You just you do the deal. The deal is there to be done. Make the deal happen. Whether it's and honestly, this goes. I still sell comic books, for $50. I don't mind being involved in that. It's to
Yeah.
me, I love comic books. I've been buying and selling comic books since I'm 15 years old. I started out at conventions selling discount books. After college, I was the guy out on the streets of Manhattan selling comic books on card tables. And I did that when I first graduated from St. John's University in 1993. I was set up on Broadway between John and Maiden Lane in the financial district of New York. And I would drive into Manhattan with a buddy of mine, my buddy Kurt, who got me out there on the streets to hustle comic books on the streets of Manhattan. And I did that for an entire summer into the fall. And it wasn't easy. On my best day, I'm very proud to say, back in 1993, my best single day, I did $700 in sales. So that was really a big deal.
Nice.
I remember I sold a McFarlane Amazing Spider-Man run, so 298 to 328, I think it was. I did, and it was a Punisher miniseries set, and I think a Punisher War Journal 1 through 10, and probably a couple of other books that I'm not remembering right now, but I do remember those. It was just like a big deal.
Yeah.
I had come to my stand, or whatever you want to call it, the day and the day before, and asked me if I had these. So the next day, I pulled them out of inventory and brought them to the streets, and and it was a great place to learn how to deal with the toughest situations in terms of you're out there on the street, you're on the sidewalk, and you're dealing comic books. And it was really fun, and that was a great way to cut my teeth in the business. So I've seen sales at the very bottom and all the way to the top.
But if I mean, we had a good look back on your starting points in the comic book industry, as you can say it, till now, to this record-breaking sale. But that sale has to do something with you. So what kind of place does this sale get in terms of the moment, the gallery in your personal comic book career?
Well, one of the most important moments for me last Friday when the news broke, I had a moment of in between the Associated Press coming to interview us and all the phone calls, emails, social media, and interviews I had to do. And that day, I had this a really poignant moment for me, which was both of my parents have passed, and I had this moment of thinking how much they would have enjoyed this moment, and I just having that kind of oh yeah, my parents would have been very proud and very happy. And actually earlier this morning, my cousin texted me that, and I told her that I was thinking about that myself. I wish they could have been around, but maybe hopefully somewhere up there, they're looking down on us with a big smile. So that's important in terms of, for me, when my mother had already passed when we sold the first $1 million comic book, but my dad was very excited. And every time we hit a world record after that, he was really thrilled. So that's good stuff. But in terms of me, for my, I guess, I don't know, you think about maybe sometimes after, we're only here for a certain period of time.
Mhm.
Hopefully, my name will be in the record books somewhere for the comic book world, maybe, 100 years from now. The first person to ever sell $1 million comic, first person to sell 15 million. And I do want to point out, and this is very important because I don't like taking credit where it's not due. My partner was the architect of this deal. My partner, Steven Fischler, he's the CEO of our companies. We own Metropolis Collectibles, which is the world's largest dealership of vintage comic books, as well as Comic Connect, which is the premier online auction site for comics and comic art, comic collectibles, other types of collectibles. And we worked on it together, but he was the point man on this specific sale. So it's really important to both of us, and we've been partners now for over 26 years, through the good times and the bad. Just like any other type of marriage, I guess.
Yeah.
But this is obviously one of the highlights and one of the really great moments for us.
Yeah, totally understandable. I mean, I wanted to ask if you think that this sale is a one-off exception, but I mean, you've already answered that question in a way when you said that you got phone calls after the $15 million sale and people were interested in that comic.
There's an old adage: all records are made to be broken, right? So eventually it'll happen. Who knows? Maybe this book will come up for sale again. Maybe another book gets found somewhere. You never know. But for right now, we're gonna bask in the glory of this sale and enjoy it. Would love to share with you guys and your audience some of the details about what happened when this book was stolen from Nicolas Cage. Would you guys like to hear that?
Feel free, 100%.
My pleasure.
What if your favorite heroes and icons could live in the palm of your hand? That's now possible with Veve. Veve isn't replacing the way you've always collected. It's expanding your love for fandom in a whole new way. From the Human Torch, Grogu, and the Mandalorian to Darth Vader and many more, all waiting for you. Every collectible is officially licensed by the world's biggest brands and made limited through blockchain technology, giving you true digital ownership of what you collect. Discover Veve today and kickstart your digital collection with 10 free gems to start your journey into this new and exciting world of digital collecting. Use my link in the video description to sign up. Happy collecting, and back to the video.
So we sell this book to Nick, and Nick is very happy with it. He's a true comic book fan. Again, this guy loved comics. I don't know if you know that, but his real last name is Coppola, and he didn't want to make it an acting on his family's name. So he changed his name to Nick Cage after one of his favorite superheroes, Luke Cage. So that's really cool. Yeah, it was also a connection to an artist that he liked as well, whose last name was Cage. But I like to really focus on Luke Cage, Power Man. So that was really cool to learn that and to know that someone who is as famous as Nick and affluent and popular around the world was such a huge comic book fan at his true core. So Nick, what he had in his mansion in Beverly Hills, he had these beautiful shadow boxes. And for those of you who don't know what shadow box is, a deeper frame, picture frame, and it could be opened up on a hinge, and they had locks, and the backs of them were attached to the security system in his home. He had a Christmas party. He had a catering team there. He had all his friends there. And he decided to turn off his alarm system and unlock the cases so he could share and show his books to people. The next morning, he realized somebody stole his Action Comics #1, his Detective Comics 27, and a Marvel Mysteries 71, I believe.
Holy.
And, he was devastated. As soon as he knew this had happened, he called up our company. My partner, Steven, who had worked very closely with Nick, flew out to Los Angeles to help with the investigation. At the time, I think Nick was married to Lisa Marie Presley. Not sure she really understood or loved comic books the way Nick did. But suffice it to say, Steve got out there, helped with the investigation. And the one thing he said to Nick, he said, I know you're really upset right now, but I can tell you this, sooner or later, somebody will try to bring this comic book to market. And when they do, we're going to get it back for you. So fast forward 11 years, 2011, we're at our offices in Union Square. Now we're up in near Herald Square in New York City. We're at our offices, and all of a sudden we get a phone call, and a gentleman says he has an Action Comics #1. A client brought it. He bought it out of the storage locker in Los Angeles. Okay, it's great.
Great find.
Yeah, he said, I have to get going. I can't leave you my number, but I'll call back. We're sitting there on pins and needles. 10 minutes go by, half hour, an hour, 2 hours. Finally, he calls back and he takes our email address and says, I'm going to send you an image of this right now. We get the image in, and Stephen, the second he sees it, realizes it's Nick's copy. He recognized it. Stephen has a photographic memory. You could tell him about a book he saw 30 years ago, and he can give you details about it. It's pretty impressive. I'm glad he's on my team. So what ends up happening is as soon as Stephen realizes, he calls up Nick, gives him the great news, calls up the lead detective who is on the case, and he's still at the police precinct. So he tells him he's flying out. He sets up an appointment to buy the book. The asking price is $1 million. Gets to Los Angeles the next day, goes to the police precinct, meets the detective, and the detective says to him, when we go to do this, I'll be your business partner. And when we go to do this, as soon as you know it's the book, just look at it and then look at me and say, boy, this is a really beautiful book. And at that point, I will introduce myself as the lead detective on the case, and we'll explain the situation. He said to Steve, if anything goes wrong, if anybody pulls a gun, don't be a hero. Hit the ground. I'll take care of it. To which Steve replied, you don't have to tell me twice. So the next day, they go to this industrial park in Simi Valley in Los Angeles. They meet with the representative of the book, who is a gentleman named Mark Bellella, who was on a TV show at the time called Storage Wars. Standing behind him in his office is the guy who found it. And the guy is really ecstatic. He thinks this could be a major payday. They open up this folder that they have the book in, and they show it to Stephen. Stephen looks at it, and within a few moments realizes it's the book, 100%. There's absolutely no way it's not. This is the book. He looks over to the detective and he says, I believe this is a beautiful book. And the detective says to the guys, here's my card. They see it's a detective card. And the gentleman who had found the book in the storage unit, all the blood drained out of his face and sad. He thought he was getting this massive payday, and it turned out to be his own comic book. We recovered the book, and all's good in the world. Steve's ecstatic. I'm ecstatic. Nick is so happy. The detectives can close out a case. It's great. Nick decides he's ready to bring this to market, and we sell it for him. And that's when it sold for the $2.2 million. Now, one of the most ironic parts of this is Nick had sold his entire collection, probably 8 years before that. Mm-hmm. This book had not been stolen. He would have sold it back then for what would have been a fraction of the $2 million we got for the book. Okay. So that's very ironic and interesting. But also what should be noted about this is we've been comparing this book to the Mona Lisa painting by Da Vinci. Now you might ask why. So many people don't realize this. The Mona Lisa was always a great painting, a Da Vinci painting, a masterpiece, you could say. But it did not gain its prominence or importance in the world of quote unquote fine art until it had been stolen from the museum it was being shown in. For 2 years, it laid under the bed of the thief until it was recovered. Mm-hmm. Fascinating story, but that's when the Mona Lisa became famous. And that's what caused tens of millions of people over the decades to go see that painting. And if you've ever been to the Louvre and you try to go to see the Mona Lisa, it's just surrounded with people. I would say that that's where the similarity ends and that they're both stolen, because the Mona Lisa was a great painting, but it was no Action Comics #1. This is the holy grail of holy grails. Now, maybe the Last Supper had been stolen. Maybe then you could make a comparison. But Comics #1 is the holy grail of comics. It is the first appearance of the first superhero, Superman, the Man of Steel. June 1938, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, after being rejected by a countless number of publishers, find DC Comics and they are willing to publish it. And they publish it in an anthology book, Action Comics #1. From there, it was so popular that the very next year, DC Comics realized they needed another hero. So they were looking all around and they find this young artist named Bob Kane. And Bob Kane had drawn this character called Batman. They said they needed another character. Bob had this character, Batman, which he created and worked on with Bill Finger. Bob Kane, I believe, was a teenager at the time. So it's just really interesting of these young guys creating iconic characters. And yeah, so the reason I bring that whole part up about Bob Kane is one could say at the time, this cottage industry of superhero comic books would never have taken off if not for Action Comics #1.
Yeah. Vincent, I mean, I had like the impression on our first interview, you're such a good storyteller. Honestly, I was so hooked on the story with the comic, and I think that's like, if you don't have any more words on this comic, I think that would be the perfect segue into your own comic series, The Addiction.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave that one out, but now let's talk about a really great comic book.
Yeah. Future sales of 15 million, right?
Yeah, that's what we want to see. So first of all, I'm wearing an Addiction T-shirt that Kiyo Shinobi, who many of you know from the Veve family, he made these for us, and I've been proudly wearing them through a lot of my interviews the last few days. I always want to publicize, if you can, The Addiction, and this was a beautiful cover drawn by none other than my friend David Finch, and there's the comic book. So
nice.
We were really thrilled. This is our second series, the Addiction, The Touch. It is a 3-issue miniseries, and we released the convention edition, these 3 editions, at New York Comic Con this past October, and we also did a digital drop for. Excuse me, we did a digital drop, but what we did is when we released the comic books, we created a blind bag that had a redemption code for a digital prize, which was one of the first digitally graded comic books. So we created a grading company called BCG, Blockchain Collectible Grading, and we released 100 digital copies. And our scale was, we had a 9.8. One of these was a 9.8. One of them was a 10, and one of them was an 11. So our scale went to 11. It's a joke bit from the old Spinal Tap movie where the guitarist has his amp, and the guy that's looking is like, "Your amp doesn't go to 10?" And he goes, "No, my amp goes to 11. We wanted to do something like that. So we were really excited. We offered the blind bags, the blue blind bags, 100 of them, and we sold out all 100 copies, which was really exciting. And we still have individual copies that can be purchased, and we have also a red blind bag. If you go to the addiction.co, you can find all of our products, all of our comic books from the first series, as well as the new #1s. And we have blind bags, which have the first series. You get a 1, 2, and a 3, and they vary. You can get a metal card. You can get special premium editions and luxe editions like virgin covers, embossed covers, UV covers. So that's a really great thing. If you ever just want to jump into the series and get all 3 issues, you can buy one of those red blind bags, and you go to the addiction.co to pick them up. And then we have these, and it's.
But sorry to interrupt there. The second series wasn't on Veve, or am I wrong there?
Only the #1. That was the convention promotion. It's not
okay.
The market. So and there were 100 digital copies graded, BCG graded, you know? Yeah. So this is a great cover. We had Tim Vigil do, and this is a cover of a character in our series called Chronic. And what's thrilling for me about this is when I originally came up with the Addiction comic book when I was 25 years old, it was originally a male character. He was an undercover narcotics cop who infiltrates the mob and later gets found out by the mob. They bust him and they kidnap him and poison him and leave him for dead. And they actually they blow his head off. That's why he's got this smoldering black face. The drugs turn his skin inky black. From the anguish he went through, his mouth disappears, and he's got this smoldering head. I brought David Quinn, my partner, in on the comic book, and we decided to change the character to a female character. That's Nikki Tino, who everybody knows. There's Nikki right there in all her glory. But a few years ago at San Diego, I showed Tim Vigil, who is David's partner on a comic book called Faust. And I showed it to him, my original drawing, which is not very good, but it was my original drawing. And he liked it so much that he drew this. And when David saw it, we realized how cool a character this could be. And we decided to bring him back into Addiction verse, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Universe. And we used this piece. We just thought it was so good. David was clever enough to rename the character Chronic. And he has the same powers as Nikki, but in our universe, he's kind of like what the Punisher is to Daredevil. Nikki's Daredevil. She doesn't kill people, or very rarely. And he's the Punisher. So he can use his touch in a very lethal manner. So this is a really great cover, and we're just thrilled about it. Same interior artist for you guys who remember the first series, which is Claudia Balboni, who's out of Rome, Italy. And I'll show you just some of her interior art. So, and this is our main villain for the series. His name is the Fever. And the Fever, his power is he can make you dance till you drop dead. And he was also a character that I came up with back in the day, and we revamped him and modernized him for this series. And he's a fantastic character. He's showcased here on the cover that David Finch did. So there is Nikki, there is Chronic, and there is the Fever. And you can see he uses this helmet he has, this mask, an amplification system that gets the music out, that controls people, and he can make them dance. Right. Well, really what they're doing is they're spastically moving because the neuro frequency modulation from the mask and the amplification system causes people to move around in a very neurotic and spasm type movement, which for many people is kind of like dancing. This is our next story, which we're going to be releasing in Comic Book Story and through Veve in 2026. Other interesting characters that are in this story. Here you have Chronic again with a very different take by artist Simone Bianchi, who's one of my favorite comic book painters in the world. Fantastic. And this guy here with the 4 arms, I don't know if you can see him. Is Joey Calamari. He is a 4-armed hitman for the mob. They're very interesting characters. Are they friends? Are they foes? Read the comics to find out. And we're really proud and excited about this. Claudia just sent us the breakdowns for issue number 3, so that's almost going to be done hopefully soon. And what was really exciting for us in terms of creating the addiction was we didn't know how the public was going to react. And we hit, I think, the right time with the right comic book. And it was 2023 New York Comic Con, where the Veve family made us an instant success. And I think I'll never forget that moment, because 2 weeks before the convention, I was sitting around scratching my head going, I wonder if people come to the convention and nobody buys our comic book. It would be so sad. We'll be sitting there for an entire New York Comic Con, no sales, and nobody enjoying this book that we've poured our blood, sweat, and tears into. Suffice it to say, we were able to work with David Yu very closely in terms of promoting and bringing the comic book to Veve. And it was the first digital comic book for Veve. And what was exciting about that was we got to New York Comic Con on Thursday, and we were there, and we were surrounded by fans. It was incredible. We had a 40-foot line winding all the way around the island that we were set up at, with people waiting to buy our comic books. What was equally as exciting, and by the way, many of those people were from the Veve family, the Veve community. What was equally exciting is at noon on Thursday, we released this book. We did the drop on Veve, and all 6,000 copies sold out in 1 hour.
What if your favorite heroes and icons could live in the palm of your hand? That's now possible with Veve. Every collectible is officially licensed by the world's biggest brands and made limited through blockchain technology, giving you true digital ownership of what you collect. Discover Veve today and kickstart your digital collection with 10 free gems to start your journey into this new and exciting world of digital collecting. Use my link in the video description to sign up. Happy collecting, and back to the video.
Now, that is just incredible. And that's a testament to the passion that the collectors and fans at Veve have. I think it's also a testament to the quality of the book. I'll put this up against any DC Marvel comic book. I think our art, I think our writing, our story, the originality of the character, they stand on its own, and they can compete with pretty much anything out there. I mean, maybe not this guy, but so we're at the convention. We're having the greatest time. We have what was for me in my career, one of the most important moments in my career, because it was the first time that I went from being a guy who sells comic books for other people, for selling them for myself, being the publisher, the co-creator, the co-writer of this comic, and seeing people enjoy it, who read it, come back the next day at the convention and tell me how much they loved it. There's no feeling like that. And actually sitting there all day long signing the book was surreal. It was a moment that I didn't know would actually ever happen in the way it did. And I'm eternally grateful. David and I and our entire team, eternally grateful to Veve, the company, as well as Veve, the community. And thank you guys for covering us and covering everything you have covered over the last few years. And I do believe we have so much more in store for everybody out there. We have some very exciting promotional ideas that we're going to come up with once we're ready to drop the second series in its entirety to the direct market. So yeah, that's what's going on.
Nice. It sounds good. Sounds good. I have a question on you've mentioned, like, you have different cover artists. As you said before, you're well connected in the comic book industry, but how do you specifically reach out to those artists or decide which artist you guys want for those addiction covers?
Such a great question. So for me, I collect original comic art. You can see behind me. And I collect comic books. And over the course of my career, I have met so many fantastic creative people. I don't just buy and sell and deal with my customers and other dealers and other auctioneers. I am a true fan of this art form, and I have a tremendous love and passion and respect for it. So getting to meet artists is a thrill. I mean, I remember the first time I met John Byrne, met Frank Miller, met Jim Lee, all these guys, Todd McFarlane, George Perez, Peter David. The list goes on and on and on. There's so many great creators out there. So I always thought, we want the comic book to sell, so we need to have great artists on board. But I also wanted specific types of artists, because there's a lot of great artists that I know that I haven't asked to do the cover yet because I didn't think the timing was right or the fit was right. And what ended up happening was, for the first issue, I knew we had one cover, the Aletha Martinez cover, which was drawn in 1997. So I knew we had that one. And I think it still looks great. It's the black and white cover for anybody out there who doesn't know. And it's one of my favorites. But I realized we needed some big heavy hitters to make this thing sell. I was at a convention in Italy at Lake Como, and I met Art Sherm. I didn't know much about him, but I knew I liked his art, and I saw how popular he was. You have to remember, I deal mostly with vintage comic books, so I'm not always in tune with what hot new artist is.
Yeah.
Who the hot new artist is. And we were at a show. It was him and Peach Momoko were the big hits of that show. They had both of them had lines of people, and then I saw there was a break in Art Germ's line, and I walked up to him and I said, I love your art. I'm doing a comic book called The Addiction, and I think you'd be perfect for us with this beautiful female protagonist, Nikki Tino. And would you be interested in doing a cover? And at first he said, no, I don't want to do any more retailer variants. I said, no, this is not a retailer vendor. I'm the publisher.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. And I was like, oh, okay. I think you should.
Okay, just like that.
Yeah, it was like fantastic. And I wished I could have gotten him to do a traditional art, but he just did the digital cover for us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the most highest selling covers from the first series. And then at that same convention, David Mack, the creator of Kabuki, who has written Daredevil and created the character Echo, mentioned. I've known David for so long, probably over 30 years. And we finally had dinner together. We never eaten together. So we're sitting at dinner, and we're at this beautiful Italian restaurant. We have the whole back room for ourselves and back of the restaurant. And he says, hey, how are you doing? What have you been up to? I said, I'm glad you asked. So I started telling him all about the addiction. I tell him about the backstory. I tell him everything. I give him the pitch. And I finished, and he goes, I should do a cover for you. I was like, oh my God, that would be great. To do a cover for the and that black cover that many of you know has a hand in the background, and it says The Touch underneath, and it's got this beautiful picture of Nikki, only in the style that David can do. These beautiful watercolors. Watercolor is one of the most difficult ways to do a painting because it's not forgiving. If you make a mistake, it's very hard to correct. Mm-hmm. The ink bleeds into the paper because it's mixed with water. So he did this cover for us, which was just beautiful. And so we had Archer, we had David, we had Aletha Martinez. And then we went from there. I met this artist named Andres Labrada, who was the only artist who did a cover for 1, 2, and 3. And he came on board. He's a younger artist from Miami. Met him at a convention. He was asking me if I would sell this comic book at my comic store, which I don't have. I sell mail order and conventions. And I started looking at his art, and one of the characters looked so much like Nikki that I was like, you've got to do a cover for me. This is perfect. And he does that kind of manga style. So he did the Grimaldi's cover, which I still have. See it there on the wall. That's the poster, the red one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was really cool. Then we had Tim Vigil did a cover for number 3. Mondo Freeman did a cover for number 3. Claudia Balboni, our interior artist, did a cover for number 3. And for the number 2, Amanda Connor, who is a dear friend, she did a cover which is so beautiful. Ryan Brown, a painter from Ireland, who I just adore his art. He works both digitally and traditionally, mixes the two together, and he looks fantastic. He did a cover. And then the last person was a guy named Robot Cat. And Robot Cat was a guy I found in the Artist Alley of C2E2 in Chicago. I scoured the entire Artist Alley, 200 artists. I come upon this guy. He's doing these beautiful pinups of like sexy anime girls eating pizza, but in a very sexual way, like the pizza slices and whatever. So I walk up to him and said, boy, I love your art. My name is Vincent. What's your name? And he looks up at me and goes, my name is Robot Cat. I said, you're hired. The name, I got to have this guy. And he did the great cover with Mr. Licorice and Bette Noir, 2 of our main villains for the first series. So we had an incredible array of artists who worked on the first series. And we also, it's important to note, we sold over 37,000 copies between wholesale, direct market, digital, and convention exclusives. That's a huge number for an indie.
Yeah.
First book out the gate, that is a huge number. So now we had the second series. I was at Simone Bianchi is a dear friend of mine. we've done art gallery shows for him, and I asked him if he'd do a cover, and he was gracious enough to do one. There's a white version. This is the Veve version, which you can see has little Veve hearts in the background. There's also a red version. Tim Vigil, again, he did a great covers for the first one. We had this piece of art. We called him up, said, we want to use it as a cover. We got that one. David Finch, who I've been friends with, and I'm a fan and customer of for quite some time. I saw him at a convention. I asked him if he would do it, and he's so busy, and he was so gracious, and he did this cover. It was just wow. Now, any of you out there don't know, but does anybody know what this is an homage to? Anybody listening right now? Okay. If anybody out there knows what this is an homage cover to, I'll mail you out a free copy of The Addiction Side.
Okay, nice.
I'll give you a minute. We'll give you 1 minute. But I'll talk about some of the other artists that are going to be doing covers for us. We have an artist out of Greece named Danny, who I also met at the Lake Como Art Festival. She's going to be doing a cover. She's fantastic. She has kind of like stylistically reminiscent of Frank Miller's Sin City work for me. Then we also have a cover being done by the Escorza brothers. The Escorza brothers' claim to fame is the I see somebody saying the Addiction cover #2 framed art print is the Veve collectible. I want more than anything. I don't know if there are any up in the market, but you might be able to find one in the Veve market. That is a great one. That's the Ryan Brown cover he's talking about. Getting back to it, so some of the other art. Well, I think a minute's gone by. So
yeah, no one.
the answer to that question is David Finch's cover for Wolverine #350. If you look at it, Wolverine is in Nikki's position, and he's got his claws out. Nikki's got the syringes there. Claws out. And they're staggered above Wolverine are two villains, and I can't remember who they are. I think you'll see it, you'll know it. So yeah, so Wolverine 350. So we've got the Escorza brothers, who did a fantastic cover. The inspiration for the cover was a Mike Mayhew Batman cover where he's surrounded by the villains, as well as, for me, Amazing Spider-Man King Size Annual #1, where he's surrounded by the Sinister Six. So if you know those covers, you'll get a real kick out of the Escorza brothers from reinterpretation. Then we have also Simone Di Mio. So we have the two Simones. Simone Di Mio did an unbelievable cover. What I love about it is he put a pink logo, or the Addiction logos, in pink, and it's just so great. It's Nikki jumping out of a window, and she's wearing a really thigh-high boots and this cute little black skirt, and she's ready for action. It's just gorgeous. And then we have a few other artists that are working on covers right now. One of them is an artist named Ito, I-T-O, who's represented by Annabelle Kirby. She's a great art rep, and Ito has a really beautiful style. He's a very up-and-coming new artist, and also another artist named Caterina Mazzai out of Italy. And not only she's doing a cover for us, which I think is going to just be a knockout cover. And I'm sure there's one or two that I'm forgetting right now.
But I mean that have been a lot you've mentioned.
Andres Labrada is doing two covers from us. One is going to be an homage to the Wolverine miniseries #1 cover. So that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. I have a question here from the chat, and Huratan asked, Vincent, how can social media and influencers do a better job at getting younger readers into collecting vintage comic books? What is your take on that?
Wow. Well, I think what you have to do is, in my mind, when I'm doing social media, I think of three things: education, entertainment, and inspiration. So I hope that this sale inspires somebody who might want to become an entrepreneur or get into the comic business. I hope that the Addiction will inspire somebody to create their own comic book or follow their passion into the art, their heart into the world of art in some way, shape, or form. I love to educate people on the history of comics and the importance of comics. And I love to entertain. Hopefully when I tell a story, it's fun, it's interesting, gets people excited. But I think the same three things can be taken with the goal of trying to reach younger audiences. Now, I think movies and animation, comic books themselves can do that, but I think also appealing to a younger audience by promoting comic books that are for a younger audience. Now, The Addiction, I would never say is for a younger audience. It's more for adults. There's a drug aspect to it, chemicals, and there's also an occasional curse word. I mean, Nikki is from New York, so she's going to drop an F-bomb every once in a while. But having said that, I think those are great ways that you can promote comic books to a younger generation. I also think that tying them in and showing the connections between what they do love now, which are video games and anime, which is what the younger generations are really, really love. I mean, older people do as well, and that's fine, but we're talking about this specifically. I think you can utilize those things and show connections and why these things lend themselves and are related to one another, and how they can be a really fantastic form of entertainment, escapism, collectible, investment, however you want to put it.
Yeah. I would have two more questions. But Josh, do you have any questions for Vincent? Otherwise, I will move on.
Well, maybe not a question, but just to address one of the comments you brought up before about I think it was 6,000 editions that had sold out during New York, one of the VB drops. I just wanted to highlight, oh gosh, where did it go here? I lost the comments. Duck. This. So Duck says, I think that's because of the way the release of The Addiction was done on VV. It will kind of stand out for VV folks. And I completely agree with this. I remember that when the Addiction series was announced on VV, it was much different from anything that we had seen before. Not to mention the way that you guys interacted with our community was much different from any other licensor before as well. Yeah. So that stands out to anybody who's still with VV now. And I just wanted to kind of bring that point out because I think
a lot of that. First of all, we owe a lot to David Yu. He's a customer of mine, and when he came to my office, we were talking about vintage comic books and original comic art, and I said, "Hey," he said, "What's that?" And I had my artwork for The Addiction out. I said, "Well, it's my comic book, The Addiction." And I told him all about it, and I said, "David, would you by any chance be interested in releasing this on VV?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, I really like it. Sure." And I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, wow. I said, "David," I said, I'm old school. If we shake hands on it right now, that means we're doing this.
Yeah.
And he put his hand up. I shook his hand and I said, "Wow, okay, this guy's for real." So we worked very hand in hand with VB in terms of the promotion, in terms of a variety of different ways to bring the comic book to the VB app as well as the VB community on X and Discord and everywhere else they are. And one of the cool things about it though was the vice president of our company, Andres Wilson. It was AKA Mondo Freeman, for those of you on X. He was so passionate about it. He loved the comic book. And when he learned about the VV community, he really loved that too. And Andres is super smart when it comes to social media. He came up with a lot of the cool ideas that we did. One of the ideas was the create your own addiction art. And so we did that contest. And that was really fun on digital. Some people used AI to help create the covers.
Oh, I got to show you mine, actually.
Yeah, we did it. We did a bunch of those. I have a lot of them saved on my phone. They're so cool. They're so cool.
Wasn't there was also a cooking contest, wasn't there? Or yeah.
And the winners of the cooking contest will appear in the comic book, in the crowd scenes in the comic book. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, I did this.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Oh, do you?
I think he's right there. Yeah.
I put Grimaldi's in the back here, and then I have the pizza in the bottom with the comic and the syringe.
When I saw that, I was at this smile. It was twice as big, and it was just like to see our character with all these legendary and popular characters. It was a really cool piece. Thank you for sharing that again. That was great, Josh.
Of course. Thank you guys for doing it. I remember, and there was like a blender animation that someone made. The community really went above and beyond with the
Yeah,
contest.
and even somebody made like a shadow box type of thing, and actually, I have still to get it off, but he gave it to me at New York Comic Con. He actually made one for me, and that's just so cool. It was great. And so it's been thrilling. The comic book, hopefully the second series is going to do as well, if not better than the first. We're looking at a publishing deal right now to have a publisher on board. We're going to do a Kickstarter. We're going to do more tie-ins and promotions with the Veve community. We have a lot of great ideas. Gosh, what else can I tell you? I mean, it's just been a blast. It's been a blast.
Well, just to piggyback off what I was saying before, you guys are doing it right. So yeah, hats off to you guys. So
and I got to tell you, like, I love promoting stuff. Obviously, I mean, I love doing interviews. I love talking about stuff. But the way the Veve community responded, and the people I've met over the last few years at conventions, people who've come to New York just to visit us at the Metropolis and Comic Connect offices, it's really special. It's really special. It's
a lot of that has to do though with you, and you mentioned Mondo. Mondo is in spaces all the time when you guys were dropping the first series. That a lot of that success has to do with you guys though. So just know that.
Well, I will say, I feel like comic collectors are really nice people. Veve people are like super nice and very positive, very optimistic, and always just so kind. And it was really funny when I was at New York Comic Con in 23. I would be walking with somebody from the regular comic book world, and people would come up and stop me at the convention and like start talking to me about the addiction. And you're like, what is this about? And it was just like, yeah, I'm kind of famous now. King of the Castle. It was my favorite night. It was really great. Yeah.
I was explaining to Jan, because I was in New York as well. The first night when the Veve community did like a little get together at the pub that night, you walked by just randomly, and people were just like, "Wait, that was Vincent." And then you ended up.
I've never had that type of thing. The club was crazy. I mean, like people coming up and hugging me, and I remember I was there with Claudia and Andres, and I looked at them. I was like, "Have you guys ever experienced anything like this?" No, not even close. So it was very special. Yeah.